The pride after a fall. England lose but win praise from many a fan. Southgate didn't get the happy ending he wanted for his squad or his country and is feeling it this morning.
When you're so close, that's even more painful, of course. It's, you know, it feels like stomach's been ripped out this morning. It's my decision who takes the penalties. It's not a case of players not volunteering.
He said the racist abuse targeted at Rashford, Saka and Sancho was unforgivable. Who does this and when will it end? Also ahead, Decision Day on Freedom Day, but the government faces criticism over mixed messaging for lockdown lifting next Monday. And thank you, England, the youngest fans who have the finest of footballing role models.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Nina Hossain.
Good afternoon. Gareth Southgate says it feels like his stomach has been ripped out this morning after England lost on penalties to Italy in their first final in 55 years. On the racist abuse 3 of his players faced after the shootout, he said, "We'll make sure we look after those boys. It was top of my thinking all night. It was unforgivable." More than 30 million watched the match that didn't, in the end, go England's way. But that hasn't stopped the country thanking Southgate's squad for some fantastic moments and memories. Here's Sangeeta Lal.
Bukayo Saka. And it's saved.
Heartbreak as England suffered an all-too-familiar fate. Many believed this would be the team to rewrite England's football history, but yesterday their story ended in the cruelest way. 19-year-old Bukayo Saka, one of the first players Gareth Southgate comforted. 25 years on from missing a penalty kick at the Euros '96, Southgate is perhaps the only person who knows how this feels and knows it was his decision to put Saka there.
It's my decision who takes the penalties. It's not a case of players not volunteering. When you're so close, that's even more painful, of course. It's, you know, it feels like stomach's been ripped out this morning. We heal together as a team now.
It was a tense match with a dream start for England fans and this goal within 2 minutes. Italy, though, fought back and equalised.
Bonucci equalises.
1-1 after extra time. The winner of Euros 2020 was to be decided with a penalty shootout. A difficult end, even more tainted by the abuse some players received online. And in Manchester, a mural honouring Marcus Rashford was vandalised minutes after England lost. Today, many have condemned the abuse. The Football Association said, "We will do all we can to support the players affected while urging the toughest punishments possible for anyone responsible." The Prime Minister said, "This England team deserved to be lauded as heroes, not racially abused on social media." And Prince William, who watched from the stadium, said it is totally unacceptable that players have to endure this abhorrent behaviour. It must stop now and all those involved should be held accountable. Former England players have also spoken out today about how impressed they've been by this year's team.
The one thing they did do and have done is bring the nation together, apart from the idiots that have gone online and abused the players for doing what they do.
More than 60,000 people were able to watch England at Wembley. From the streets, though, fans without tickets tried to force their way in. And outside, euphoria turned to aggression and disorder. 49 arrests were made and as many fans were sent home. For Italy's players, it was a heroic return, unbeaten in 34 matches. An audience of almost 31 million watched the final game of a tournament that's brought the country together through isolation. It boosted a nation bruised by the pandemic, and although not the end everyone dreamed of, it has given hope that one day England will be able to win. Sangeeta Lal, ITV News.
Our sports editor Steve Scott joins me now. You've had a few hours to reflect on what happened last night. What are your conclusions?
Well, Nina, I think I feel what everyone else feels really, it was just disappointing. I think this team, and I think Gareth Southgate, will see last night as an opportunity missed. But the other side of that is, it's probably true that the best team won. It was also a reminder of how cruel football can be, and your heart goes out to those 3 young England players who missed penalties last night. But once you get over that, you have to reflect on what this team has done over this tournament. It really has united a nation. It really has given people something to smile about at a time when, of course, we all need that. And then you have to reflect on the fact that how young they are, how much they've progressed in the last 4 years under Gareth Southgate. They've gone to a World Cup semi-final and now to this final. And when you think where this team was in 2016, being defeated in the Euros to Iceland, that's some progression.
Yeah, we should be able to enjoy talking about what they've achieved and the tactics of last night, but we are also now having to talk about the behaviour of some fans, of that racist abuse of some of those players and what it does to our international reputation.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about it again, aren't we, Nina? It is depressing, but it was depressingly predictable, really. I don't know where you go with it, because it seems to me, and this is anecdotally, that this is actually a situation that is getting worse, not getting better, despite the fact that the FA has launched various campaigns, so many campaigns, including the players themselves. The FA, I think, are fed up with talking now. They have been talking to Twitter and all the other social media companies. They say they're getting nowhere. They just want this online safety bill to have teeth, so it is law, and they can try and put an end to all this.
Steve Scott, thank you very much. Well, let's continue with that theme then. And what is it going to take to stop players being abused simply because of the colour of their skin? The chief executive of Kick It Out, Tony Burnett, joins me now. Look, Gareth Southgate knows all too well what it's like to miss a penalty in a key match and then face criticism, ongoing criticism. But the abuse his players faced last night, this morning, that's on a different level, isn't it?
It's completely different level, absolutely, and it's sad again after such a fantastic. And I heard your discussion with Steve after such a fantastic 4 weeks where Gareth and the players have been an absolute credit to our country. We should be celebrating what they've done, and we're having a conversation about the fact that 3 of them, at least 3 of them, have been abused yet again. And sadly for those 3 players, it won't be the first time. It won't be the first time they've been abused at all, because this is just a consistent theme for the life of a black footballer.
And were you watching like I was, like Steve mentioned, depressingly predictable that if those guys, if Saka, if Rashford missed, that they would face this?
Not only were we watching, I was in dialogue with a couple of colleagues as soon as the final penalty, the unfortunate young man Saka who missed the penalty, and we text each other to say, let's just wait for the onslaught and we'll have a busy day tomorrow. We know exactly when this stuff's coming. And this is one of the kind of core points here, that we as an organisation, a small charity, know exactly when black players are going to be abused. And it's on the back of situations like this. If we know it, social media organisations know it, and they need to do more to filter and protect the messaging that goes to these players.
We saw England players and some other players throughout the tournament choosing to take the knee. Has the government done enough to support that action on the pitch through this tournament?
I think it's been a red herring, to be absolutely honest. I think the brave young men, our players, have been absolutely steadfast in their commitment to drive out discrimination. That's all they've ever done. Gareth Southgate's been really articulate about the fact that this is about anti-discrimination. And yet we've chosen, and certain parts of our society have chosen, and certain politicians have chosen, to link this to some political discussion. And it's nonsense. It's utter nonsense. A group of brave young men have said enough's enough. And if anything, over the last 24 hours, we've seen that actually they're absolutely right. They're absolutely right. And they've got every right to say enough is enough in whatever way they choose to, without being judged by politicians or anyone else in society.
Look, and everyone is saying that today. But how many times are we going to hear that it's got to change? What is going to change this? Why can we not live in a society where the colour of your skin leads you to getting verbal abuse and obviously the Marcus Rashford mural being vandalised as well?
I think that's part of a bigger discussion. I think we have to really start talking about what it means to be black or Asian in this country now, because it's a discussion we're all frightened of, and we instead we hide behind certain things like taking the knee, or it was statues 12 months ago with George Floyd. When actually we need to talk about why our society has such racist undertones and what we need to do to fix it together. Because I don't think everybody, by any stretch of the imagination, is racist. I think the vast majority of people in this country believe all human beings are of equal value. I think our conversation needs to be, how do we create a society where actually the majority are heard, not the minority who want to perpetrate evil and wickedness on the rest of us?
I hope you're right. Tony Burnett, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. Still to come, will England's Euro success inspire a new generation of football stars?
About next year, we'll be doing brilliant, basically getting more goals in and stuff, and maybe even win the World Cup.
But first, at 5 o'clock this evening, the government is expected to officially confirm that lockdown lifting in England will go ahead next Monday. From July the 19th, it will no longer be the law to wear a mask, social distancing will disappear, and there'll be no limits on who you can meet inside. But ministers have faced criticism for mixed messaging and the timing of unlocking as COVID cases rapidly rise. Here's our political correspondent, Carl Dinnan.
The government won't say you have to wear them for much longer, but masks and other social distancing measures are likely to be left up to individuals and individual businesses, some of which are struggling to enforce the current rules.
Some people don't care, some really care. So you've got the ones who really care going, look at those over there, look at them, they're not wearing masks, and you're trying to police that and run a business that's not making money because you're not running at full capacity. You can't find staff, you can't get stock. It's, you know what I mean, like for us publicans, it's, well, hospitality in general, it's a car crash.
But the government has promised clear guidance and says that with the vaccination programme dramatically reducing hospitalisations and deaths, this is by far the best time to get rid of the remaining restrictions in England.
We're approaching the summer when people will be outside in warmer weather, and we know that the disease transmits far less outside, and we're approaching the school holidays. So the short answer is, if not now, when?
But there is opposition to scrapping restrictions just now.
We think that's reckless at a time when infections are rising rapidly. We need to take a balanced approach. So there are certain things that should stay in place, like mandatory mask wearing on public transport and in health and social care settings.
And there are still many people, like Lizzie, who could be at risk from the virus.
Unfortunately, I am one of hundreds of thousands of people in this country who is immunosuppressed. And what that means for me is that the vaccine didn't work. I've had COVID and I've been vaccinated, but blood tests show I haven't made any antibodies or T-cell response. So I'm just as vulnerable to COVID as I ever was.
But across the country, the direction is towards easing restrictions. Scotland's could be gone by the 9th of August. Northern Ireland is due to relax more on the 26th of July, and the Welsh Government will review its position on Thursday. Carl Dinnan, ITV News, Westminster.
Our political editor, Robert Peston, is with me now. They think it's all over. It isn't now. Lots of concern about this so-called Freedom Day and unlocking across England next Monday.
Yes, it's exactly right. I mean, I pointed out yesterday that hospitalisations are now rising quite significantly. In England alone, hospitalisations are back at levels we haven't seen since the 10th of March, when we all felt we were in a crisis. And the Prime Minister will confirmed today that he expects hospitalisations to continue to rise. Now, his justification for giving us back pretty much all of our freedoms is that if he did that in September, when schools are back and when we're expecting flu to be quite a serious problem, the pressure on hospitals would be even worse. So we're going to hear again that phrase we keep hearing from ministers, if not now, when? But, you know, the messages are a bit confusing for people, because he'll also say he wants all of us to act responsibly, continue to wear masks, for example, if we are in settings like pubs or in close spaces on the tube or on buses. But it won't be legally enforceable. And, you know, you can just imagine sort of horrible things happening when somebody gets on, refuses to put a mask on, bus driver says you've got to get off, and somebody says they won't. So I think there is here the potential for a lot of nastiness over a period of time. As we saw at the football yesterday, not everybody behaves responsibly. So, you know, I think we're in for a bit of sort of anxious sort of weeks. We think that the vaccine has at least lessens the potential for us going into hospital, and it's certainly lessened the potential for dying. But, we're not, I'm afraid, yet out of the woods.
No, it doesn't sound like it. Robert Peston, thank you very much. Thank you. There were long queues at Heathrow Airport this morning, with photos showing crowds waiting to check in at Terminal 5. The airport said the queues were down to a number of staff being told to self-isolate by test and trace. On Twitter, one traveller said it was total chaos. And towns on the California-Nevada border, lying in the path of a massive wildfire, have been evacuated, with dozens of homes already destroyed. The Death Valley National Park in California has recorded highs of more than 50 degrees Celsius. OK, back to the Euros now, and from heartbreak to potential hope. England had one of the youngest squads in the tournament, and the World Cup is next year. You could even say they're ahead of schedule, based on targets set for them back in 2013 by the then incoming FA chairman, Greg Dyke.
The first is for the England team to at least reach the semi-finals of the Euro Championships in 2020, and the second is for us to win the World Cup in 2022.
Greg Dyke joins me now. Your prediction came true, and they did one better. They reached the final. From what you've seen in the past few weeks, few months, we should have hope in this team to perform well at the World Cup, shouldn't we?
Yes, I don't change my prediction of a few years ago, which is I think we can win it. I think we drew last night and then lost on penalties, but I think we can win.
What hope for England or the UK hosting a major tournament, the 2030 World Cup, after those scenes at Wembley, the security breach, the hordes of fans trying to get into the stadium without tickets, the booing of the anthems throughout the tournament by some England fans, and the racism some people have subjected some of our players to?
Well, sadly, I think racism is something you'll find in an awful lot of countries around the world. It's totally unacceptable, and we have to do something about it. I think we've got to, we're going to bid for the next World Cup, and the FA's probably got a chance of winning. OK, hope for that as well then. Given what we've seen in this tournament, what is your message to Southgate, Sterling, Kane, Pickford, Sean Maguire, Foden, Natal? I could go on and on over what they've done for their country so far. This is a young squad, and many of them will, for sure, without injury, make it to the squad next year and potentially beyond. I think if someone had said to us at the beginning of this tournament, you're going to get to the final, most people wouldn't have believed it. And I think what they've done is remarkable. I think they're a great bunch of players, and as you say, young players, and there's others coming through. I think international football looks pretty good in this country for the moment.
And Greg Dyke, what about Gareth Southgate himself? He is aiming to lead the team into that World Cup. But what about beyond? It feels like we've got some stability now, some real authenticity in management, inspiring those younger players and helping them through the hard bits, as we saw with him and that really long hug with Saka last night. Should we be wanting him to stick around for a bit longer after the World Cup?
Oh, I hope so. I mean, he's a very bright guy who behaves really well to all his players, to the public, to the journalists. I think he's a very talented young man. And I sincerely hope he'll stay with us for some years to be the England manager. I mean, he's got us to 3 semi-finals and one of which went on to the final in 3 or 4 years. I think it's a great performance.
Yeah, I think despite the disappointment, we will take that. Greg Dyke, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, with thoughts already turning to next year's World Cup in Qatar, what about the tournaments in 10 or even 20 years' time? Will the passion, grit and conduct shown by Southgate's squad inspire a new golden generation to take up the game? Here is Sangeeta Kandola.
Football may not be coming home just yet, but all the fancy footwork and England's performance on the pitch has led to many in our playgrounds taking away the positives. At England player Kyle Walker's former school, pupils are bursting with pride.
It's really inspirational because he was like a normal kid just like me and he managed to play for England.
Especially seeing his performance in the Euro final, he was one of the best players on the pitch in defence, for me at least.
Over the last few weeks and a late night last night for children up and down the country with their parents' permission, they've been glued to their screens. And although the England team will be feeling the pain of the penalties today, they should also feel proud that a new generation has been inspired, like these pupils in Bristol.
Tried your hardest, but it just didn't work out. But you still have other chances and other matches to play, and you'll hopefully win.
And I bet next year we'll be doing brilliant, basically getting more goals in and stuff, and maybe even win the World Cup.
Thoughts are now turning to other tournaments, with good advice that children themselves are so often given. If at first you don't succeed, try again.
Keep going.
Sangeeta Kandola, ITV News.
Keep going, keep going. We'll end this lunchtime clinging on to some of the fantastic memories that England gave us in such surreal and difficult times. Gareth Southgate began the tournament by writing a letter to the country called Dear England. Here are his words at the very end of that letter. He said, "Of course, my players and I will be judged on winning matches. Only one team can win the Euros. We are desperate to do it for the first time. Believe me. But the reality is that the result is just a small part of it. When England play, there's so much more at stake than that. It's about how we conduct ourselves on and off the pitch, how we bring people together, how we inspire and unite, how we create memories that last beyond the 90 minutes, that last beyond the summer, that last forever." Let's hope they do. From me, bye-bye.